It's not long now before Shorekeeper finally arrives. Wow, our wait's basically finally over because man, she's so damn cute. Or basically that's what all of us who have already decided to pull for her would say. But obviously I know that many of you are still on the fence of deciding whether or not Shorekeeper is going to be rather worth it for you to pull at this point in time, which is basically the whole reason of today's video, to look into some of her pre-release information and discuss a little bit about Shorekeeper to help you make a better decision. And so without further ado, let's just basically hop right in. Astrites, admit it, I know you all love this shiny gems. Your favorite Wuthering Waves character requires this, but well, you're out of Astrites. What do you do now? Well, of course, we tend to swipe our cards, however, that can be quite expensive, doesn't it? But thanks to Loot Bar, our sponsor for today's video, we have an even better way for you guys to top up for Wuthering Waves. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 20% on all of your top-ups. With over 11,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point in time, you can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. To demonstrate to you, I've been topping up my Wuwa account through Loot Bar, buying the highest Wuwa package. You go through the checkout process, then they will ask you to fill your account information. After completing, you will have a direct message notifying that they are hopping in to top up for you. Then voila, you're done. Here you can see my order receipt. I've topped up Genshin Impact with Loot Bar many times before, so I can be sure that they are safe. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save money, especially if you are topping up a large amount in Wuthering Waves. The first off, we'll basically go through her skill and kit. Do keep in mind that obviously most of these information are only in the pre-release information and it's not official information just yet. So still take everything I discuss here in this video with a grain of salt. Now for Shorekeeper's kit, you can see that her normal attack looks really good in the live stream that they've demonstrated here. But to keep it simple for you guys to understand, her normal attack, her skill and her forte circuit generally isn't going to be very important. Now apart from her skill, where there are going to be healing skilling when you level up her skill talent, but basically her normal forte and skill is just there to deal a little bit damage for you to actually help her to charge up her concerto energy. Because while of course just like Verina, she's not going to be dealing that much of a damage from her normals, so you don't really have to expect too much in that. Now I'll definitely be discussing a lot more in depth whenever Shorekeepers officially arrive about how her normal attack actually works, but right now that's all you need to understand. However, another interesting thing is that whenever you hold your normal attack, which is kind of like a heavy attack, before she has a max forte, she'll turn into a cute little butterfly to help you travel around a lot faster while also charging up her forte in the process and help you to collect material without you having to press any button. Now on paper, this doesn't sound very interesting because while you can think that you can run, but actually it is very much faster than you running. So it is honestly very quite handy for you to travel around long distances, making Shorekeeper in terms of traveling on land right now or even over water if you do have enough stamina to be the fastest character to help you move around. Now the more important part of her kit starts when it comes to her liberation. So what it does is that whenever you use her liberation, she first casts off what's called an outer stellar realm. This realm at first for you to easy to notify is going to be kind of like a blue realm, which only going to be generating your party members HP. Now this does regenerate all of your party member HP, which is pretty much handy, but it's only just that for now. However, if you trigger your next party member's intro skill, it then turns into an inner stellar realm, which now it has the ability to provide all of your party members a 12.5% crit rate increase. How you notify the inner stellar realm is that it turns to purple, and then once you do another intro to another party member, the inner stellar realm will evolve into what's called supernal stellar realm. And now on top of healing all of your party member as well as giving your party member crit rate, this realm will give all of your party member an additional 25% crit damage depending on how much energy regen your Shorekeeper actually have. If she has up to 250 energy regen, you will get up to a maximum of 25%. Do keep in mind though is that in Wuthering Wave you already have 100% energy regen at the start of all of your character builds, so technically speaking you will only need to build an additional 150 energy regen for you to have all of this maximum stack. So how you're going to be notifying this realm is that it will turn itself into gold. Pretty simple, right? Yep, I don't think there's much more to it, but it's a very important liberation and one of the best skill in the game because of the sheer amount of crit ratio she's providing to all of your team member is just so damn valuable. Not to mention this realm does have a 30-second uptime, which is actually very long, so it's very easy for you to keep the buff up. Now what's also interesting within Shorekeeper's kit is regarding her intro skill, because technically speaking she do have two intro skills. The first intro skill is basically all the normal intro skills that everybody have, so whenever you do her normal intro skill she will automatically restore HP for all of your nearby party members, as well as summon 5 dim star butterfly that basically automatically track and deal spectral damage to the target. However, if you do her intro skill whenever the supernal stellar realm is active, which is the golden stage of her liberation, she will cast a different intro skill which is called discernment, which restore HP for all of your nearby party members while also dealing spectral damage. But the difference here is that discernment is guaranteed to be a critical hit while also having liberation damage multiplier. Do keep in mind though is that at S0, if you cast her intro's discernment skill, then she does end the current state of the stellar realm, so it's only advised for you to use her discernment whenever you feel that her liberation is going to be ending, so that you can start a new rotation after you use her discernment intro skill. Now this is pretty important within Shorekeeper's kit because this allows her to actually help your team deals quite decent number of damage. Obviously she's not going to be doing much of her damage through her normal attack, however this skill is considered to be a guaranteed critical hit and you basically use this every single rotations, which makes it to be building crit damage onto Shorekeepers an actual sense, and it will help you to have pretty nice DPS overall to help out your teams, which of course we're going to be touching more onto her build section later on in this video, but be sure to keep that in mind for now. Now for her first inherent skill is pretty simple. She basically keeps one of your party member from being knocked out once every 10 minutes. Her second inherent skill is rather nice because whenever your party member is within Shorekeeper's liberation, she herself will have an extra 10% energy regen increase, which is nice because now you can technically only build an extra 140% energy onto Shorekeeper for you to have a maximum buff stack of her liberation. And if Rover is in her team, then Rover will also have an extra 10 energy regen increase. So Shorekeeper star seems to really love our Rover, which is really nice. Now Shorekeeper's ultra skill is a little bit special because after she uses it, she summons 1 flare star butterfly as well as 1 dim star butterfly to circle around your active character. What it does is that whenever your character get hit or basically get interrupted, if you tap your dodge button, your active character will now immediately recover from the interruption, which is rather nice. Other than that, she will also provide all of your party member an extra 15% damage amplified, which is very nice of that too. So those are going to be Shorekeeper's skill and kit for the time being. Moving on, I kind of want to touch on her sequence a bit because it can be rather important, especially for some of you who are looking into investing into her. So S1 is basically kind of like a quality of life increase. For basically now, her liberation circle is extended by 150%, which is a rather nice increase. However, even in S0, her liberation circle is already quite big, so it may not be a problem many of the time. However, I have seen that many bosses actually move around quite a lot, especially in this game, like for example the Inferno Rider, man, that thing just moves around the field constantly. So sometimes you may end up out of her circle, which feels like instead of circle impact, which we have in Genshin Impact, now it's going to be Wuwa circle. But if you do have her S1, basically her liberation is going to be covering most most of the field. I'd say it's around 95% of the field already, so you will never have to worry about your enemies running outside of your liberation circle. Other than that, her liberation duration is extended by a 10 second, which at the start you already have around 30 seconds, now you have a 40-second uptime, in which while it does help you to have a more comfortable rotations, which is okay. And now after casting her intro skill Discernment, she will no longer end her liberation duration. S2 is while very nice because now her liberation actually increase all of your party members attack by an extra 40%. Most of the DPS character would love this, but do keep in mind of course is that it's only attack percentage, so later on if we do have any other character that have different scaling like HP percentage scaling, this will not be active. S3 allows her to have more concerto energy after casting her liberation. I say this is an okay sequence because generally she doesn't really have much trouble gaining her concerto energy, because after just one of her normal attack rotations she should already have her concerto energy at max. S4 is okay, you get like a 70% additional healing bonus after you use her skill, so yeah, she is a lot better at healing your team, though I don't think that's actually too much of it worth it, especially at an S4. For you guys to understand S3, I'd want to explain a little bit about how her normal attack and her forte work, right? So basically at her basic attack stage 3, as well as whenever you have her max forte bar and then you use her heavy attack to cast her forte, she will do a little bit of like a small black hole to suck your enemies in, kind of like a crowd control, right? However, it is not actually that good, so it's only a little bit of bonus kind of thing that Shorekeeper have, and then S5 of her is going to be extending this by a bit, so it will only group enemies that is already close enough to each other, which doesn't actually require you to group your enemies anymore, but the enemies that actually need to be grouped together, which are quite far apart, it will still not pull them together. So overall it's not really that good of a sequence. Now her S6 is actually quite interesting because, as we've mentioned, her discernment intro skill is one of the most important parts of her kit if you are looking for her into dealing damage. So now her S6 is going to be increasing that by 42%, while also allowing Shorekeepers to have an extra 500% crit damage increase to her intro skill Discernment. So now her intro skill Discernment is going to be dealing a ton of damage. Now I don't know exactly if this 500% crit damage is only to her intro skill Discernment. Most likely that's going to be the case. Otherwise, if she still have her 500% crit damage for all of her other normal attack and skill, I think this is a little bit too OP for Shorekeeper, but obviously I would definitely have to test this out actively whenever Shorekeeper officially arrives. So overall, that's everything we know about Shorekeeper Skill and Kit at this point in time, which is where I want to discuss and talk a little bit about her downside and her upside. Here is that first off, what she's really good at is that first of all, she is sexy as hell. Man, she's very good looking, which is definitely a pulling factor for many of us. Other than that, obviously, apart from the healing capability that she has, which is rather similar to what Verina does, and that is a very good thing. You also have amazing buff that specifically focusing on giving your team a lot more good crit ratio numbers. She's very easy to play and buff are very easy to trigger, as we have seen from her liberation, because you just need to basically cast 2 intro skill in order for her liberation to get max buffing. And of course, all the things that she does, most of the teams would love to have Shorekeepers. I don't and can't really see any teams that wouldn't want to have Shorekeeper at this point in time. And on top of everything she does, her ultra skill does give your team a bit of comfort defensive utility in terms of allowing you to have successful dodges from being knocked back, so kind of like a safeguard to resistance interruptions. Now a downside that I can kind of see for Shorekeepers at this side only, and it's actually not really that big of a deal, is that the only problem here, especially for those of you who would love to maximize your rotation, is that her buff actually takes quite a long time to get to the maximum stack, right? Because as you kind of seen, her liberation requires you to do 2 intro skill. So in order for you to get an extra 25% crit damage, your second character is required to charge up your concerto energy 2 very fast so that they can actually cast their outro skill, so that you can actually cast your third character intro skill for her golden liberation. Now this is technically not too much of a problem for a solo DPS character, kind of like, you know, for example, a Jinxie, Jojo and Shorekeeper team, because Jojo is basically going to be just an off-field coordinated helper for Jinxie. However, whenever you're looking into a duo DPS team, especially at S0, generally speaking, many of the time your second DPS character won't be able to get that extra 25% crit damage increase. So basically they themselves will have to charge up their concerto energy real fast, and that may actually require them to cast their liberation before they actually get the buff to fasten up your rotations, because at S0 she has a 30 seconds liberation uptime, and of course it's only a 25-second cooldown, so overall you can have a liberation up 100% of the time, but your rotation overall is still pretty much shorter, especially if you're in a duo DPS team. You would love to quick switch between your duo DPS character whenever you hit your golden liberation stage, and technically speaking, even though it is a 30-second uptime, for you to be able to charge up your second character intro skill, it may already take up to around 10 to 15 seconds. So in reality, you only have around 15 seconds to play around within your liberation at S0. Therefore, as I've mentioned, even though S1 is actually an okay quality of life update, many of the time, if you're not really too much of a rotation enthusiast and your rotation isn't really that tight, then you can have a bit of a problem at S0. Not to say that it's really that important for you to put S1, but S1 does allow you to have a more comfy rotation and playtime around when you have Shorekeeper on your team. Obviously, as I've mentioned, it is may not that big of a deal, but it can be for those of you who are really strict on their rotations. So with that being said, let's have a look into Shorekeeper's specific build. First off, let's touch on her talent priorities in terms of what you would like to invest into. First off, obviously I would say it's going to be increasing her liberation, because on top of the healing scaling that she will have, it does help her to have better intro skill discernment damage, because it does scales off of her liberation level. Next, you can level up her skill, because even though her skill doesn't do much damage, it does help her heal your team better, so it is a good thing for you to invest into her skill. Next is going to be her intro skill level, because as I've mentioned, she does help your team to do more damage, which is a very nice thing for Shorekeeper. And then obviously after that, if you don't have anything else to invest into and you love to invest everything into your Shorekeeper, then yeah, Forte and normal attack is something you can go for. Alright, onto her Echo's building. Obviously she's going to be using the rejuvenation set, because while the fallacy our new Echo is going to be here, and obviously it is going to be the best Echoes to be using on Shorekeeper, because not only does it give her energy regen, which is very important, but it also, yeah, increase your team attack percentage as well. So it does lower her energy regen requirement by an additional 10% if you're trying to maximize her buff. For your Echo main stat, as I've mentioned before, crit damage is actually a very nice thing to be used on your Shorekeeper, because her intro skill discernment helps you to do damage, especially as S0. Therefore, your fallacy cost 4 is recommended to be running a crit damage main stat. Now yes, you can opt for HP so that you get more healing, and of course her intro skill discernment does go off of HP as well, but overall at S0 it is recommended for you to go for crit damage, because your 2 cost 1 Echo is already running HP. Now for her cost 3, generally I would recommend you to go for double energy regen so that you can maximize and make sure that you have that 250 energy regen maximum for your Shorekeeper. But obviously if you can't already met that requirement for one of the energy regen cost 3, then the other cost 3 you can run with Spectral, but obviously her doing more damage overall for your team. Substats is obviously if you have crit damage, HP is also really good, and of course energy regen as well, so overall aim for those 3 stats. Now Shorekeeper's weapon, it's actually very easy. I think she has rather good options here. Now overall her signature obviously is going to be the best, guys, well, hands down, because not only it does give her a lot of energy regen, it also gives her the ability to buff the other character's attack, but also gives her more HP and restore her concerto energy, right? So overall it is a very comfy signature weapon given to Shorekeeper. So it's really nice. Other than that, obviously the variant 4-star option is also very good. You can have the ability to get this all the way to R5, which does a lot with in terms of helping her to recharge concerto energy. Then you know the rectifier number 25 should be the craftable options that is very nice for you to go for as well. Energy regen is good, however, you know the attack increase isn't really too valuable on Shorekeeper because she scales off of HP, but overall for absolute free-to-play options, you can go with this. And yeah, if you're like just starting out in the game, the 3-star options rectifier of Voyager is a decent choice as well. Overall, the passive is not really that bad. Now, regarding Shorekeeper's team build, since she is a character that's very much similar to Verina, technically speaking, all of the DPS character will appreciate having Shorekeeper on their team. Now, as before, I've mentioned some dual DPS team comp out there. You may have to optimize your rotations. Obviously, I will have to test them out later on, but this is just my theories, you know, like Changli HMC or Jingxi Changli's, those kind of teams, right? There are some other dual DPS team comps out there as well. But as I've mentioned, you may want to prioritize one of your DPS to charge up their concerto energy as fast as they can first, but the second DPS to switch in, and then your whole team will get the buff. Then you can start your dual DPS rotation. So that may lead to you having to use your first DPS liberation a little bit more early and lose out a bit of damage there, but that's how you will have to play whenever you're having Shorekeeper there in terms of rotation wise. Now, as many of us have seen, Shorekeeper is quite very much similar to Verina. However, there are differences between the two characters, and I kind of want to discuss them a little bit here so that we can still make a clear distinction. And especially it can be quite important whenever you are making decision of whether or not you should still be pulling for Shorekeeper or save for other future characters. So for Shorekeepers, she generally will have better buff than Verina, because if it was just only crit rate buffing, for example, then it's actually not good. However, here you're getting both crit rate and crit damage, and they are very high on top of that as well, making Shorekeeper very valuable. If you're running like a sole DPS character on team and focusing your buff on them, you can actually see around a 15% better than you running Verina. And on top of that, as we know, she also have defensive utility buff to help you with knockback. Now, whereas with Verina, even though at times her value to the team is going to be slightly lower than Shorekeeper, however, Verina buff attack percentage here, and also her buff is a lot faster to activate, which is likely going to be better for your dual DPS team. And in this situation, the numbers between Verina and Shorekeeper might be a lot lower, but more importantly, Verina is technically a free character if you have chosen her at the start of the game, and you can potentially S6 her as you play more in Wuthering Wave, because yes, she is a standard character that you may potentially lose to, and her sequence is actually rather good. Her S2 is generally one of the best sequences in the game because it helps her a lot with charging up concerto energy, therefore maximize your rotation a lot better. And at her S4, she is one of the more important characters when it comes to a spectral team because of the spectral damage that she gives. So those are the credit I must give to Verina, because overall she's still a very absolutely good character. So therefore, with everything that we've discussed about Shorekeeper, is she going to be a worth it character for you to pull at this point in time, especially when you know that Camellia is going to be coming, and also other character that's going to be coming in the future, while also already having Verina and Baiju, who's also very nice supportive character that you have on your account? Is that generally, I would say, for my personal advice, is that I would still be pulling for Shorekeeper, because overall if you look into it, for TOA you technically need a 3 team, therefore Shorekeeper is going to be the third supporting character that you can build for your third team. Now yeah, it's not always a requirement for you to always have 3 quality support character. Now, even though Bajir is a very nice support character 4-star, however, Shorekeeper compared to Bajir is obviously going to be outclassing her by a lot in terms of how much buffing Shorekeeper has. Plus, Shorekeeper is going to be valuable for a very long time and would be even longer than Verina because she has crit ratio buffing. Now, Verina is a character that focuses on attack percentage buff. Therefore, in the future, if we have any other character that uses different scaling, for example, defensive scaling, HP scaling, right? We've already seen characters like Tao Chi and Yuan Wu who all uses defense scaling for their damage output. Well, obviously, they are not the character that you focus on having as a DPS, but that would be the case in the future, and also HP scaling. Now, for all DPS characters, they're almost guaranteed to be loving crit ratio, so Shorekeeper will have her buffing very valuable for all DPS character in the future, whereas Verina on those kind of team, you're not going to be using her. So obviously, in meta-wise perspective, Shorekeeper is going to be a very valuable that you kind of want to invest at this point in time, as we do not know when another supporting character is going to be here, and Wuthering Wave might just go ahead and give out a lot of DPS character. But obviously, if it in terms of preference wise, then yeah, it comes down a lot to your preference. And guys, if at this point in time you're still having trouble deciding whether or not you should be pulling for Shorekeeper and Camellia, then I do have that specific video for you to look into, and it can be quite valuable. So be sure to check out this video right now, as I'm sure it will help you out. So guys, that's everything I have to say regarding Shorekeeper pre-release information at this point in time. I will definitely have a specific guide whenever Shorekeepers come out. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss out on my future Wuthering Wave video. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me to this part of the video, guys. And with that, I wish you a super day, and I will catch you on my next video.